All right, welcome back, Be Better Tribe. This is your host, Julian Alvarez. Now, as you already know, this podcast is designed to look back on lessons, stories, and leadership journeys that I've learned along the way or individuals that I've met. And I try to bring them onto this podcast to help us learn and allow us to be better. And I'm really excited today. I get to welcome in somebody that I've known for over 30 years. I was in second grade. This individual was in first grade, and it was way back at Westlake Elementary. And the funny thing is about these connections is I met him, gosh, so long ago. We used to hang out. We used to play sports on the playground. And then you kind of lose touch with these individuals, and you kind of cross paths again and lose touch, cross paths again. But what I've loved to see from Alok is the fact that he's always one. I've always seen him in a really happy state and cup half full type of individual, and he's always been such a high achiever. Whether that's doing really well at school, he went to a phenomenal university. He's gone all the way to be a board advisor on boards, a CEO, a CFO, and he's just really making an impact. And with all of that, I just really find that Alok has been such a great person. And I think it's amazing to surround yourself like that. So it's really fun for me to reconnect with Alok, as well as continue to chat with him and talk to him about leadership strategies and things that he's seen in the market, and just kind of to bridge that gap again. And it's so funny when you're a kid, when you're really young, you don't realize how important those small connections are and how amazing people can end up becoming. And it's really great to see that. And I'm excited for you to learn a little bit more from Alok and hear about his story and what he's accomplished so far. But before we dive into that, I want to have a quick reminder. Go ahead and visit the BeBetterTribe.com website. You can go ahead and pick up one of these habit trackers. I am going to try to run a marathon again before the end of this year. It's a big year for me. I'm actually turning 40 at the end. And I'm trying to keep this habit tracker here so that I can start learning, and actually not learning, but being a little bit more disciplined in my habits. If you recall, a long time ago, I tried to do a marathon with limited training, and that did not go well. So this time I'm going to try to bunker down and really focus on the training, focus on getting things done, and focus on being disciplined to actually achieve that. So hopefully, I already know this habit tracker is definitely going to help me do that. You can visit the BeBetterTribe.com website and go ahead and order your own. We also have the gear on there, Be Better Tribe crew neck sweater, as well as some other t-shirts and whatnot. So feel free to support the podcast in that way. We'd love that. Also, if you can like, comment, and subscribe, if you're finding this podcast as beneficial for you, or if you could just throw me a favor, that would be fantastic. We are growing continuously and steadily, but it's always great if you can share this message with other individuals, share this podcast. That would be fantastic. So without further ado, I'm super stoked to bring on a good friend of mine from Santa Cruz, who I've known for, again, over 30 years, somebody who it's great to see that I'm inspired by him. He's done so well in his career, and I'm excited for you all to learn from him. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and welcome Alok. All right, Be Better Tribe. I'm excited to have this legend on the podcast today. Alok and I have known each other for, since first grade, first and second grade when you started at Westlake. So we're talking about over 30 years. And, why I'm so excited about this is I think one of the things that we've always talked about on this podcast is the importance of connections. And I think it's great to see you, Alok. I haven't seen you or talked to you in a long time, but I love that we're able to connect again and talk about our careers and our future and our families and everything we've done. So I'm really excited to have you on the Be Better Tribe podcast today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Julian, for having me on. I couldn't be more excited to join. You were a year ahead of me at Westlake Elementary School in Santa Cruz. I think you were in second grade when I was in first grade when we met. Yeah. And I still remember kind of those playground days and playing touch football and basketball and soccer. And it feels like, even though it's 30 plus years ago and you and I are old guys now, it feels like yesterday we were running around the playground at Westlake Elementary School. So thanks so much. Great to see you. And thanks so much for having me on.
Of course. And so let's go there, man. We both grew up in Santa Cruz. We both went to Westlake Elementary together. So, we kind of had a little bit of that background. And even as a kid, to me, you always seemed super positive. You were always willing to put yourself out there. You were playing touch football with a grade above you. Like you were just a fun person to be around. And so, what was your upbringing like? What were your early experiences that helped shape who you are today?
Yeah, look, I feel like we were both just very lucky kind of growing up in Santa Cruz
Yeah.
with amazing kind of supportive parents. Like I want to give a shout out to your parents and my parents. Like I still remember, we played all these sports like soccer. I played little league baseball and like touch football, but like, our parents always kind of being there for us, coming to our games, just being super supportive. I mean, the way my family ended up in Santa Cruz. So both my parents are professors at UC Santa Cruz. So my dad actually came to Santa Cruz in the early 70s in 1973.
Wow.
And that's how we ended up in Santa Cruz. And
And where do you come from, if you don't mind me asking?
from India, from
Yeah.
India. So yeah, my dad basically came to the U.S. from India in 1963, first to Chicago, the University of Chicago, to do his PhD in anthropology, and then he lived in New York and Pittsburgh, taught at NYU and Columbia, and then he got multiple kind of job opportunities on the West Coast. Similar to me, I don't think my dad is much of a cold weather guy. So, so he ended up in California. I was like, oh, this is pretty nice. And so my dad came to California, took a job, a professor job at UC Santa Cruz in 1973. And back then, I mean, Santa Cruz had just started UC Santa Cruz had just started in like the 1960s. So
Yeah.
it was a very new university. It was a new department. My dad had an opportunity to lead the anthropology department. So he came to Santa Cruz, and then my mom came in the 80s, also from India. She's a professor too, so sociology and anthropology. And when you asked about kind of my experience kind of growing up and as a
Yeah.
young kid, I feel like, look, just both my parents being professors, but also professors of anthropology and sociology had a really strong impact on not only my upbringing, but like shaped who the person who I am today in terms of like, one, just academics, the importance of just like, being a really good student and, reading and writing and being super diligent in that regard. But I'll give a lot of credit to my mom, especially as an Indian immigrant coming from India.
Yeah.
She was very encouraging from an early age. Even I remember when I was like 5, of like playing sports outside. I remember she would be like, yeah, you got to have good grades, but the way that you're going to be able to, stay in shape and like be athletic, but also make friends is through sports. So she put me in, like, I'll never forget, that you and I were probably in the same soccer league, like the
Yeah.
public soccer league I
Yeah.
joined when I was 5 years old.
Excel.
Excel. Yeah, exactly. Excel Soccer Club. Yeah. And look, like, sports would just like, even today, like, I'm super with for both my kids, even though they're super young, 5 and almost 2. Like tennis is my favorite sport. If you
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
at Santa Cruz High, I played varsity tennis for
There
4
you
years.
go. Yeah.
But both of my kids, literally, I put them on a tennis court before they could walk.
Yeah.
So I feel like just like the academic grounding, immigrant experience coming from India,
Totally.
and then also just access to sports, but
Mhm.
also both of my parents being like, hey, that's how you're going to be able to, interact with different types of people, different types
Yes.
of kids coming from different types of backgrounds, be athletic, learn how to work on a team, which is exactly what you learn from sports, especially soccer, like you and I played from a super early age, was just a amazing impact on me from an early age that's really carried over for my entire life.
Yeah, and I love that. And it's so funny because like I feel like both of your parents being academics and having that background and having a really strong base there, and that understanding of like you gotta get out of that comfort zone and you have to play sports and you have to connect with others because like those friendships that like what's crazy is like I know you probably have the lifelong friends from Santa Cruz like
Yep.
I do, and it's just those were made on those fields
Yeah.
and those were made during recess, and those connections do matter for a really long time like we're having right here, which is great. I love it. And so the next question I have for you is when people see the titles CEO, CFO, board member, they often see the finished product, right? But every successful person has moments where they've doubted themselves. And so will you walk us through a time where it was really hard for you, where you had a moment on your journey that, you might not know what the outcome was going to be, or just a challenge that, that was really tough to get through?
Totally. Yeah. Look, I mean, there's so many, but I'll give you the, one that I'll never forget. My career, I did, after graduating from college at Penn, doing the Wharton business program, I did investment banking at JP Morgan. And then I worked in venture capital and private equity for several years, and before becoming a CFO. And so basically, I'll never forget this. I did 2 years of this really intense investment banking analyst program at JP Morgan, working on M&A deals and IPOs, working 80, 100-hour weeks. It was crazy. And so I was like 24 years old, and I got a job at TCV, which was it's a large venture capital growth equity firm, growth stage, just investing Series C to Series E. I was very fortunate to get that job. The firm has invested in great companies from like Series B stage onwards, like Netflix, Spotify, and several others. And so I was working at that firm, and this is after my investment banking program. And I got put on like two live investments like within my first month at
Wow.
the job. And I'll never forget, because I was living in San Francisco in North Beach, and the office was in Palo Alto.
Oh,
I would have to drive from North Beach to like University Avenue in Palo Alto to go to the office. And like I thought, okay, I just got done with this investment banking program, so this is like private equity, venture capital is going to be more chill. I'm going to be able to work less, and I will never forget. I was like in the office from like 8 a.m. to like midnight, and we had like a morning meeting the next day where I had to present to like some of the partners, like the data and diligence on this company. And I was just so tired, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go home and sleep for like 2 hours and then come back to the
yeah, yeah.
office and just like grind it out. Right. And so that's what I did. Like in retrospect, it was stupid, but I drank a lot of coffee. So I was fine, thought I was fine. So drove from University Avenue to North Beach, and then slept for like literally 2 hours, and then got back in a car and went back down on the 101. And the whole drive back, Julian, I was like, you know, I've worked so hard. I'm just gonna quit. Like I was like, this is terrible. Like I don't deserve this. I could go do something else. Like I already worked for like literally 2 years, 80-hour weeks. I'm not gonna do this.
Yeah, yeah.
But then like, man, I don't know. Something came into me. I think it's one of the, I think it goes back to like sports, right? Like for me, as like tennis is my favorite sport. So in tennis, I played singles for 4 years. And like one of the things that every single person that I played tennis with, either as an opponent or as a teammate, will tell you is like, I just never give up.
Yeah.
I will, at any point, any game, I will play till the end, no matter what the score is. And so I remember telling myself, going back into my TCV office on University Avenue, you can't give up. Like this,
Yeah.
this is really hard. This is like terrible. You're like sleep deprived, but you just can't give up. And so I powered through and ended up, making it through the TCV for a few years. Like that was my first month. I was a few years there, and that helped me position me for like the next job, which was a bigger job than that. So that's hope that answered your question, but that was like, yeah.
It absolutely does. And what's crazy is like there's two things. I don't know if you've ever read The Dip by
Yeah.
Seth Godin. Okay. And
Great.
it reminds me of the moment where it talks about like when you're overwhelmed and when you're really stressed is not the right time to give up or quit,
Yep. Yep.
because you'll regret it and you won't fulfill like your fullest potential. And so what I heard from you is like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, getting to a CEO, getting to CFO isn't for the lighthearted. It's for individuals that are willing to like get the job done when it's required of them. But like I think for me and like for life, like you have to also have to find balance. So do you have any techniques on ways in which after you grinded it out for, and we're both still, it's a different grind. We're
Yeah.
both parents. I have three, you have two. We're both in roles that require a lot from us. But
Yeah.
I do feel, at least for me, is I've been able to find a little bit more balance with the books I read, or being able to detach just with my mindset and things like that. Do you have any techniques for individuals who are in that grind, who like we'd like to tell them like you got to get through it, you got to push through. However, is there anything you wish you had someone told you or given you some additional advice to help you through that moment where it was a really big struggle?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I'm very lucky, similar to you. I'm a relationship guy, so I've been seeking out like mentors and
Yeah.
folks that are 5, 10 years, maybe even older than me, who've been through the journeys that you and I are going through right now with young kids and intense careers. Look, I think the thing that I keep reminding myself, especially as a dad with young
Mhm.
kids and an intense job, is the like and like you're seeing this now with the newborn. I didn't realize this until my daughter was born, is like the time you have with your kids just goes by so
Oh,
fast. It's just like, even seeing my son, he's 5. I remember holding him as like 1 minute old, right? And I didn't fully start appreciating it until I had my daughter. And my
mm,
son and my daughter have like a 3 year age
yeah,
gap. So when my daughter was born, I just felt like it almost like time started fast forwarding even faster, because
yeah.
I was like, my son was growing, and then my daughter is also growing, and then I'm like, wait, my son was like a baby like a minute ago. Now he's like in preschool, like saying words and sentences and like talking to me about his friends and like water play and like soccer, tennis. And I think that that's a big part of reminding yourself, especially when you're in this, like that, like even though like we're trying to achieve the top,
Yeah,
like in these jobs, it's like the time you have with your kids is precious,
yeah,
and you can't undervalue kind of how fast things go, but also that time you can never have it back, right? Like folks that are older than us will say you'll never have it back.
yeah,
So I mean, look, and so what I keep on reminding myself, and again, I'm not perfect at it, it's something that I'm trying to work on actively, um, is just trying to be, when I'm with my kids, like trying to be as present as I can.
yeah.
And I think during the week it's harder because, like, we're grinding, we're traveling, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But the weekends for me, even what I've told my team, my CEO, who I work closely with, who's my boss, is like, hey man, I will make time for you when my kids are asleep, like at night.
Hmm.
But like during the day, unless it's an emergency, I will not respond to you right away.
Yeah,
And I think that that's also a key thing for folks who are, learning in our stage and trying to grow, is, and this is really hard for me, even to this day, and I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
perfect at it, but trying to figure out how you can set boundaries, especially with the people you work with the most, and like being very cognizant about like those boundaries. Because like, look, I'll be out with my kids at like amusement park and I'll get a text from my CEO. It's like, hey, can you talk? And I'll be, hey, and my response will be like, hey man, is this urgent?
yeah,
If not, I'll call you at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night, because that's when both my kids are asleep and I
yeah,
can
yeah.
spend as much time talking to you as you, ideally not all night,
It's either
but
that or Netflix to unwind or a book. So yeah, sure.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But I do think, and again, this is something. It's a constant struggle. It's something I'm constantly working at.
yeah,
But I think people, whoever they are, CEO, board member, even someone more senior to you, I do feel like, especially if they have been through the journey or are on the same journey as you, they respect you more if you're able to set those boundaries.
yeah,
Still, you're like, your time is valuable, my time is valuable, the business is incredibly valuable, but they're not more valuable than the precious time I have with my kids.
yeah,
Unless it's like a fire or an emergency and we like something's like breaking and like things are gonna like fall apart. That's like the very rare instance, right? But other than that, you gotta be cognizant.
yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a couple things. One is I love your focus on being present with your kids, because I do firmly believe the time you spend is important, but the time how you spend that time
Yeah,
is like key. It's like detach it from the phone, get your phone down, like do your best to just be engaged with them, because like that is what's going to matter. But then the other piece is like I also take that to your work as well. Like you're going to have times in your career where you have to grind it out. If you
totally.
want to be successful, if you want to be the best, you have to grind it out. But if you're present during those grinded out hours and you're invested and you have the right mentors and you ask the right questions and you're curious, you can expedite your career pretty quickly if you are doing the right things and are staying present. It's like the individuals that get stuck in both parenting as well as in their careers are the individuals that like are pointing fingers of blame or victims or saying it's too much or aren't willing to take the challenges because they're afraid of not being able to figure it out. And I feel like for both scenarios, and correct me if I'm wrong, I just feel like being present, being engaged, setting boundaries, setting your schedule, like being very clear of when you're going to accomplish things and when you're going to do things, and then following through. Like it's absolutely critical.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. I think the other thing that you said, which is really important for myself, also for you, you're incredibly successful, is the importance of not only relationships, but the compounding nature of relationships.
Yes,
So like I'm a finance guy. So like, Warren Buffett, I read a book, Warren Buffett's like I've read 5 books on him. And like one of those basic tenets is compound interest, right?
totally.
You got to think about relationships just like Buffett
Yeah.
talks about compound interest. Because I'll give you a great example, like the folks that I'm working with today. I'm CFO of a AI company, but I'm also a venture partner at a venture capital firm. These are relationships, one that I've had for almost 20 years with someone I went to college with who was the same year who recruited me. We
Yeah.
were in the same year in Wharton together. He's been recruiting me for several years. He's a partner of mine now at the venture capital firm. And then my CEO, who's my boss, he was someone I helped recruit to be an executive at a portfolio company
Mhm.
that when I worked in private equity, I sat on the board of 12 years ago. And he was like literally one of the executives we recruited. And now he founded this company that is a great company, hyper growth AI company. And he recruited me to be his CFO.
Yeah.
And we've known each other, we've literally worked with each other and known each other for like 12 plus years. And this is the third company we've been a part of together that we work with.
Yeah. It's the small connections. It's being good. It's showing that you can do good work. It's staying connected with people. It's building those really good relationships. I absolutely love that story because it's so true. All right, so another thing is obviously we've talked about your incredible career trajectory. We've talked about what you've done from your small town roots to attending Wharton to doing major things. What is some of the biggest mind shifts, or habits that you've like continued to grow as you become an executive in leadership?
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's a constant, I would say, shift, and something that I'm still working on.
Yeah.
But look, I think I worked with and this, you as an athlete will appreciate this too. I think that two things are really important, like always seeking out mentorship, advice, but also coaching
Yeah.
is super important. Like, I think that just being a life, and I think being a son of two professors, this was kind of born. I was born with this, but like always, having a learning mindset about everything, including your own kind of personal development, is super, super
Yep.
important. And then another
Yep.
mindset shift that I, have helped me a lot, just personally and professionally, is a saying that I say to myself, which is everything happens for your benefit, good or bad. And like there will be business challenges, there'll be personal challenges, it is literally just like a matter of time. And it's not like when it'll happen or how it'll happen. It'll be like, what? There's always going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
But just if you shift your mindset, which is also something that I feel like I've done a much better job of as I've progressed in my career, to, like, why did, instead of like the first reaction be like, oh, why did this happen? Or we're so unlucky that this happened. More like being like, all right, this happened. This is to our benefit. How can we turn this challenge or this
Mhm.
problem into a solution or
Yep.
something that we can benefit from?
Yeah.
And that can be like a personal challenge or a professional challenge. But having that mindset and reminding yourself that everything happens for your benefit is a shift that I've had, especially over the last few years, starting when I was a CEO and now as a CFO, that has really helped me every single day of my life and my career.
Yeah, I love it. There's a book that I've read by Jen Cisnero called "You Are a Badass," and
Okay.
there's two things that she says which I love. Is like, this is good because.
Mhm.
So like, regardless of whatever happens, is this is good because. And then I think this is a different book, but event plus perception equals the outcome. And
Mm.
so like events will happen, like your perception of that event will actually dictate the outcome. And so like I love what you said because like you cannot be a successful CEO if you don't have that mindset. You cannot be a successful executive if you don't. So I really do appreciate you bringing that up and sharing that with your team. And it's just a great way to think about not only professional but personal life as well.
Totally.
And so speaking of that, you've worked alongside some executives, some board members, investors. So you're bumping elbows with some people that have done very successful things. And so what are some of the characteristics or behaviors you consistently see among those people?
Yeah, look, I'm going to give you a shout out here. Look, now like just I've been very lucky, working with a lot of amazing, as you said, executives, board members,
Yeah.
investors, kind of high performers in various areas. What I constantly, and this goes back to like also wanting to work with people that you're have relationships with, or even doing this podcast with you, which was a no brainer for me when you reached out, is the importance of being a good person and being kind. Like I'll never forget, and this is a direct. Actually, I thought about this when you reached out, and I was listening to one of your other podcasts with Peter talking about the Santa Cruz high school days.
Yeah.
Right. So, you and I went to Westlake Elementary together, and then you went to Mission Hill. I went to Pacific Collegiate
Okay.
middle school.
Yeah.
And then I did that for 2 years, seventh and eighth grade. And then I came back. I went to Santa Cruz High as a ninth grader. You were a 10th grader.
Yep.
And I still remember it was PE, like the first day at Santa Cruz High. And look, the Mission Hill kids all went to Santa Cruz High, right?
Yeah.
So like they
Yeah.
did middle school together. They all knew each other. And you were always like a very social, friendly, athletically gifted, and just like good guy, right? And I hadn't seen you in a few years, right? Like probably fifth grade. You were
Yeah.
in sixth grade. So I will never forget like the first day in PE, like my first day freshman year in high school. I remember looking around the PE room, not knowing many people, and I saw you. And I was like, Julian, and you just came up to me and you gave me like the biggest hug. You're like, oh, look, I haven't seen you in so many years. Good to see you. But like, look, dude, like being a good person, being kind, being friendly, and just like, frankly, just like not being an asshole.
Yeah.
It's also another thing that in business and in work, it just compounds over time. And you just never know like how it's going to help you, because I will tell you with 100% certainty, and I've learned this from the most successful people I've worked with, is, these sort of things also compound where you never know. Like you could get a call, someone could call you for a job I'm interviewing for, or vice versa. And you could be like, hey, do you know you're connected with this guy on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
How do you know him? Is he a good dude? And that actually happens to me all the time. People will reach out to me all the time, be like, oh, you're connected to this person on LinkedIn. You went to college with them. What were they like 20 years ago? And I was like, that, and the first thing I start with, which is almost universally the case if I know the person and I'm friends with them, is Julian Alvarez is a great person, right? Is and that is also just like you learn, especially as you get deeper and deeper and further on along in your career. That is something that not only compounds, but it's something that comes back to you, and you see
Sure.
that with a lot of successful people as well.
Yeah, well, I didn't pay you to say that story, but I appreciate it. And it was great to see you back in, high school days where we were able to connect again, and being able to connect now is even better, which is awesome. So the last way we end up these interviews is we'd like to grab some advice for the youth. I think
Yep.
it's really important to look back and give you like, whether you're in that high school class in ninth grade, or you're starting college, or you're finishing college, having a tough time in this current market of finding a job. What advice would you give to an individual trying to land a job, having a really tough time? Maybe they did take that drive where it was 2 a.m. They had to go present what they were scared, or they were overwhelmed, or they were, a bit burnt out. What advice would you give them, or anything that you can tap into there?
Yeah, I would say, the one of the most recent pieces of content I've consumed is on Netflix. They just dropped a mini series on Rafael Nadal.
Ooh, okay.
You should check it
Yeah.
out. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like a 4-part miniseries. And this is also like very relevant for us in our careers, and also to anyone who's listening to this podcast or who's younger and growing their career. But in an interview, Nadal says, "Tienes que sufrir," and basically, and that you speak Spanish, but he's like, you need to suffer to basically achieve greatness. And in that way, just to carry the analogy forward, Nadal says, like, look, I suffered a lot. I had a lot of injuries, but if I had not suffered and taken the easier way in my career, instead of winning 22 Grand Slams, I would have won maybe maybe 7, maybe 10, but there's no way I would have got to anywhere near like 22. So the only way to do it was through the suffering that I put my mentally I went through and physically I went through. And you got to watch the documentary, but you see kind of his injuries and struggles. Even after he won the French Open at age like 18, he got diagnosed with a foot disease where most of the doctors told him, like, you can never play tennis again when he won one French Open. And then he basically ended up, as everyone knows, he ended up the one record in sports I think will never be broken. If I was a betting man for my lifetime, I don't think anyone's going to win more than 14 French Opens, which is what Nadal did. But this guy at age like 19, the doctors, multiple doctors, like, you can never play tennis again. And for his entire career, he essentially basically powered through a chronic foot injury that he just was like, I suffered, but I just went through it, won 22 Grand Slams. And so I think, like, look, for folks that are struggling in any way, personally, mentally, finding a job or in their jobs, all the all-time greats. But Nadal is like a great example of this. And I'm a tennis guy, and everyone should watch this. But Julian, you'll love it too. As a competitor and athlete yourself, you're going to love this. There is an importance, even though it's painful, it sucks, the importance of suffering. Everyone goes through it to achieve greatness in whatever they do. And especially if you're someone who's like an all-time great, like Nadal, 14 French Opens, 22 Grand Slams, just hear it from him. But you hear it from every single one of the all-time greats. And that's something that I also mentally remind myself too when I'm going through it, either personally or professionally. It's like, tienes que sufrir.
I love it. And I think thanks for sharing, because I'm gonna go watch it. That's why for me, like, doing this podcast, it brings so much joy for me because I learn so much. Yeah. And second, like, it's so true. And all the stories that you said, like, it's not easy. Everyone looks at Nadal as just like, oh, he's just Nadal. It's just him. But like, no, I never knew about that foot injury. I didn't know about that at 19. Like, holy shit, man, going through all of that and still being a legend. It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, Alok, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Thanks for joining the Be Better Tribe podcast, and appreciate everything. Appreciate you. So take care and have a good one.
Thanks, man. It was Julian, it was my pleasure to be on the podcast.
Thanks, man. Thanks.